Hey guys, it's me, Seren, back with another video. So I wanted to do this video um, after reading some of the comments on my last video that I did before Bees Bake on Insecure, because I know I talk a lot about numbers and I talk a lot about stats and I talk a lot about percentages on this channel, and judging by some of those comments, a lot of you guys are not familiar with numbers. And it's funny because like I am really bad at math, right? Like I'm fucking terrible at math. But once I became an adult and I started having to like implement math in my day-to-day life, it was like all of a sudden I fucking understood math. Like all of a sudden I fucking understood percentages. I understood like percentage points. Like the first time I ever had to calculate like tax and tip, all of a sudden I can understand fucking percentages. Like, oh, okay, like if I want to tip 15% or, like stuff like that. So I wanted to make this video to talk a little bit about numbers. Let's talk numbers, obviously, because it seems that a lot of people are confused about the way that numbers are used and statistics and percentages. And I think it's important for us to understand a lot of these numbers and studies because they're used so often. Percentages are out of a set number. So I saw a lot of people saying in the comments, well, of course, more white people watch Insecure because there are more white people in the United States. No, that is not the way that percentages in terms of a demographic, like a group of people watching a TV show, works. The percentages that are given are not out of the total American population. The percentages that are given are out of the total number of people that are watching the show. It seems kind of silly to have to say this, but the numbers are out of the total amount of people watching the show. So like, here's an example. If 100 people, right, were watching Insecure, right, 62 of them would be white people. 38 of them would be non-white people. And out of that 38, there'd be however many, I didn't see that number, specific number for the number of like black viewers specifically given. But out of that remaining 38, it would be like whatever, black people. So less than 38 of them would be black. So it's not out of the entire American population. It is just out of the number of people that are watching the show, right? So that's number one. And it's funny to me to see this sort of used as the argument, like, well, there's more white people in the United States, so of course more white people are going to watch the show, because that means that white people should be the dominant consumers of everything, right? Like if the argument is supposed to be that, oh, there's so much more of them, that there's such a majority compared to us, the minority, only 13% of our population, even though even that 13% at this point is up for grabs because, as we've been talking about on this channel, descendants of American chattel slavery have been pushing to be recognized as our own ethnic group instead of just being kind of lumped under this umbrella of black or, African American. So we're going to go with the number 13%. It's technically, I think it's like 12.8, but we're going to go with the 13% of we'll say black people in America for right now. So we're obviously hugely outnumbered by white people, yet African Americans, black people in America are the number one consumers. We're the number one consumers of pretty much everything across the board in the United States. We're the number one consumers of hair products. We're the number one consumers of beauty products. We're the number one consumers of clothes. We're the number one consumers of movies. We are the number one consumers of television shows. So just because we are a minority in the country does not make us a minority in terms of consumption. Just because white people are a majority in the country does not make them the majority in terms of consumption. We are the majority in terms of consumption because we consume far beyond what our actual number is, right? It's not like there's some type of setting on consumption that says like, well, black people are 13% of the population. So once they get to 13% of consumption, them niggas is cut off. Like, no, it doesn't work like that. Like, and it's funny because another argument that I also saw was that black people don't have cable, black people don't have HBO, black people don't legally watch TV. So of course it's going to be 62% of white people that watch the show because those are the people that watch television, quote unquote, legally. Now, I looked up those numbers for y'all. Cable plus, 91% of the American population has cable plus, which would include HBO. 89% of the African American population has cable plus, which would include HBO. That's only a 2% difference, right? That's only a 2% difference. Cable plus with pay, which includes even more additional channels like motherfucking Stars, because you niggas love watching Power. 50% of the white American population has cable plus with pay. 55% of the African American population in the United States has cable plus with pay. So we actually pay for more premium television than white people do. We watch more cable. We watch more premium channels. We watch more TV overall than they do. Let me tell you, African Americans watch an average of 10 hours of television per week, 1.2 times more than the overall U.S. population. And 56% said they are constantly active on other devices while watching. So again, we are only 13%, 12.8% of the population, right? Yet we watch 1.2 times more television than the overall U.S. population. We have 5% more of us than white people that have cable plus with pay, and 89% of us versus 91% of us have regular cable plus. Now let's just keep going down. Digital cable, 49% white, 48% African American. Wired cable, which is like a box, 61% white, 62% African American. So in terms of paying for cable, we are neck and neck with white people, and we pay for more cable television, and we watch more television overall. We consume more television, we consume more movies, we consume more media. Yet again, we are the number one consumers across the board in this country. We consume beauty products, clothing, like we are consumers. And I know I've talked about this previously in other videos like Shea Moisture and stuff like that in terms of the consumption habits of Black people in America, again, African Americans. We are the number one consumers despite the fact that we are only 13% of the population. So using as an excuse, well, there's more white people in the country, so of course more white people are going to watch Insecure. It doesn't make sense. It's not supported by the numbers, right? And then trying to use the excuse of, well, that's because white people are the only people that legally watch this show or pay for premium cable. Like, there are studies. We can look at the number of people that pay for premium cable, right? 55% of niggas. Only 50% of white people, right? And if we factored in, like, illegal watching, that should probably go up to about 98%. Like, niggas love TV. So I don't know what this, like, mental gymnastics, let me not even say that is mental gymnastics. I think a lot of people just really don't understand numbers and don't understand the way that percentages and statistics work. Because like I said, I didn't understand that shit until I became a fucking adult, and it had to be implemented in my day-to-day life when I had to figure out how to pay bills. I used to be like really shitty. I had to figure it out. I had to figure out how to balance a checkbook. I had to figure out how to budget. Yet again, I had to figure out how to calculate tax and tip. And, you know, once I had to start doing these daily calculations and working with percentages and decimals and stuff like that, it was sort of like, oh, all of a sudden I understood math because now I had a practical application. You guys know I hate the way that we talk about shit in theory and in rhetoric instead of practicality. And that even starts getting into some other stuff I've talked about in terms of, you know, education and the school system and how things are not designed for practical use. They're designed a lot of the times, for gatekeeping. And you guys know how I feel about a lot of issues with higher education and in terms of what does it actually prepare people for. And we're not even going to get into that. But I wanted to make this video talking about numbers because, like, numbers are the closest we get to the handwriting of God, Pacific Rim. And as someone that never liked math and, like, never fucked with math, I have, once I got this understanding of numbers, yet again, this is a way that things can start to make a little bit more sense. So you ask yourself, like, well, I don't understand. How can, how do these numbers work? I don't understand how these numbers work. It's like, this is the way that the numbers work. White people might be the majority, but that doesn't mean that they are the majority consumers of television or anything else. White people pretty notoriously don't consume hardly anything. So the fact that 62% of Insecure's audience is white is, like, even more fucking egregious once you even take into consideration the fact that Black people in America are the number one consumers overall. We watch more television overall. Yet again, 55% of African Americans in this country have cable plus with pay compared to only 50% of whites. So the fact that more black people are not watching this show, don't try to blame it on niggas not having cable, not having HBO, or not watching TV, or the fact that there's more white people, right? Percentages in any study that gives you a percentage, the percentage is out of the test group, the subject group, right? So in this case, not the American population as a whole, just the subject group. So in this instance, the subject group, the test group, would be the insecure viewers. So out of the insecure viewers, 62% of them are white. That has nothing to do with the American population overall. And even if it did, white people in the United States are still not the number one consumers. Black people are, right? We watch more TV, but we do not watch this show. No contortions. Those are the facts. Those are the numbers. Now, we can have a conversation about why, but we're not going to pretend that these numbers ain't what they are. Another excerpt that I wanted to read from you guys. Analysts say that in recent years, amid dramatic growth in the amount of TV and streaming content, programmers have accelerated their diversification efforts targeting narrower niches. African Americans watch far more TV than any other group, nearly 44 hours a week last fall, Nielsen says, while Asian Americans watch the least, right? Now, that has nothing to do with the number of the population in the country. It's just, what are people watching, right? What are people watching? What are people watching? And if people are not watching your show, what does that mean, right? I'm going to have links to all of this information in the description box, and I'm going to have links to related videos in terms of Shea Moisture, where we talked about this, in terms of education, where we've talked about this, but like, ultimately, again, at the end of the day, like, let me make it very clear to you that Black people are the number one consumers of television, and we also have the most premium cable. So us not watching TV or us not legally having cable is not a reason for why Black people are not watching Insecure. And I'm just going to leave that shit at that. Let's talk numbers. Food for thought as always. See you guys next time. Peace.